Welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio. I'm your host, Deborah Bailey. And when I started this show in 2008, I was on a mission to promote women-owned businesses and help women succeed by providing resources and valuable tips from other women and men, small business owners. In each interview, my guests speak openly about their triumphs, the scary times, and tough decisions they have to make along the way. Women Entrepreneurs Radio is about showing women how to harness their natural strengths to achieve success on their own terms. Hi everyone, welcome to Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. And I'm really glad that you could join us today. And if you are listening to this show on Podomatic, that's one place that you can find it. But you can go to womenentrepreneursecrets.com and you go there under the podcast link in the menu bar. And you can also find links for the other platforms the show is on, which is including iTunes and Spotify and iHeartRadio. So depending on where you like to listen, you can find links there to find the show, or if you already have those platforms, then you can just do a search for Women Entrepreneurs Radio, and then you can subscribe from wherever you are. If you listen on iTunes, it'd really be great if you could share your review, how you feel about the show. If you can give it 5 stars, even better. If you're able to do that from how you listen to the show, because of course the more reviews, the more easy it is for other people to find the show. So please make sure that you do that and give your feedback. That's really, really appreciated. And also, if you are on womenentrepreneursecrets.com, you can find many blog posts there for women entrepreneurs. So please make sure you go there and check out all the posts. And if you're interested in sharing a post, there's also information there for guest posts. And there's also information there for being a guest on the show. So that's a good place for you to go to if you want to find out a lot about what's going on with the podcast and also different things of interest. And you can visit my site, dbaileycoach.com, to find out more about my online courses and book coaching. I have courses about marketing your books and also self-publishing course. I'm about to maybe expand that a little bit in the coming weeks. So if you go there, you can get the link for the online course home. And in that way, if you sign up and you want to get updates, you can get that through signing up on the course site. And then you can find out more when other courses are being added. And also, if you're interested in writing a book and self-publishing, you can find out more there as well. And last but not least, you can see what books I've published, because I've been self-publishing for several years now. And you can find that out at brightstreetbooks.com, and that's my site for my fiction. So please make sure you stop by there and check out the books that I have, and also there's links for where you can buy them as well. So hope that you will visit and find out more. So we're going to start our show, and I'm going to introduce my guest. Elena Upton, Ph.D., is a classically trained homeopath and has studied and practiced within the natural health field for nearly 30 years. Her expertise in the utilization of modern approaches to classic homeopathic methods stems from intensive training and collaboration with prominent holistic medical doctors and specialists from around the world. Elena first incorporated her knowledge into a clinic, the Holistic Resource Center, that attracted many types of clients with an emphasis on those suffering from environmental allergies. Now Elena has curated her years of experience into her first book, The Alternative, Your Family's Guide to Wellness, as well as an ebook series. So welcome to the show, Elena.
Well, thank you, Deb, and thank you so much for having me.
Well, I'm so glad you're here. And as we were talking earlier, it's taken us a little while to get together. So I that's how life happens. And, I'm really excited that we finally are able to talk. And I think that, now that we're able to have this time together, it is the right time. So I'm very happy, that we could have
It
this
is the right time.
Yes, definitely. And I think as far as health and all that wonderful stuff, this is definitely a perfect time, as we were talking before about all the different things with weather and health and how a lot of people have been affected by the kind of, I don't know, strange winter that we've been experiencing in a lot of parts of the country. So I think it's also a perfect time to really introduce this topic for the listeners. So before we get into probably more into those details, if you could just share, how did you get to where you are with your work and deciding to go into this field?
Well, I think like most amazing things that happen to us in our lives, it just happens by accident or by chance or by providence, is how I like to think of it. That sometimes we're just shown a path, and I guess it's our choice whether or not we take it. Fortunately, I took this one. So my husband and I took my two sons on a ski trip to Colorado in the winter of 1987. We had some health issues at that time, that I was just starting to experience some health issues. I had one of my sons had chronic bronchitis at the change of the seasons every year, spring and fall. He would come down with bronchitis, which of course it's always antibiotics, which I knew wasn't good, but I didn't know of any other choice. Mm-hmm. My husband had terrible allergies, animal allergies, and they seemed to be spreading into other areas. But so we were on this ski trip, and we went to visit his actually college roommate and fraternity brother that he hadn't seen in many years. We went to visit him and his family, and they had invited us to dinner that night. And Colleen looked like she was a little under the weather, and I see her take out this little box, and it has these little vials in it of these white sugar pills. And she took out a little booklet, and she consulted the booklet and went down the list and grabbed one of the little vials, took a few pellets, and probably 15, 20 minutes later, she's up in the kitchen and bopping around and making dinner. And I looked up to her and I said, what was that? Mm-hmm. She said, oh, that was homeopathy. I had never heard the word before in my life. I said, oh, what? And she repeated it. And then in about 25 words or less, she described to me what homeopathic medicine was. And it was like I was transported to another place, and I already knew what it was, even though I was hearing it the first time. So it's one of those bizarre moments you have in life that you remember forever. Mm-hmm. And you know that there's some intervention happening there. But anyway, we went back home. So we were living in Massachusetts at the time. Went back home to Massachusetts, and I went right to the library. Of course, there were no computers in 1987, so you wanted to look up something, you went to the library. And I was shocked when I walked into the library, and I asked them to show me if they had books on homeopathy, and she said, oh, yes, and she brings me to the stack. Now, I expected to find this little row of 2 or 3 books. No, there were stacks and stacks and stacks of books, of repertories and materia medicas and books from all over the world. And I was shocked and astounded that here was this entire system of medicine that was over 200 years old that we don't know about in this country, or that very few people know about. There's less than 1,200 homeopaths in America. And once I finally delved into it and realized how extraordinary this was, that homeopathy, so I'll explain a little bit to your listeners. Homeopathy is not herbs, it's not supplements, it's not essential oils, it's not flower essences, and all those things are wonderful, but it's not any of those things. Homeopathy is a system of medicine that was developed in Germany in the late 1700s by a doctor by the name of Samuel Hahnemann. And Samuel Hahnemann found that when he took substances from nature, and he started with tree bark and plants and some other things, and he diluted them down and succussed them, which means he would shake them, which actually in this day and age now we understand that means you exaggerate the energy in the molecules because water holds memory. And that makes it more powerful. So if you take a plant and you dilute it and you succuss it and you dilute it and succuss it, every time you dilute it and succuss it, you're actually making it more powerful. So this is how we actually get our different potencies within homeopathic medicine. So he spent his entire life developing this system of medicine so that by the turn of the last century, in the early 1900s, there were actually 25 medical hospitals, homeopathic hospitals in America. We had homeopathic colleges all over the country, and there were thousands of homeopathic doctors in this country that had come over from Europe, and it was being taught. And fast forward to now, what happened to homeopathy? Well, the AMA and the FDA. Not so much the FDA, because the remedies are FDA approved, especially because they're so safe and they're so inexpensive and they've never harmed anyone. But what happened was there was a person by the name of Flexner in 1916 who was asked to write a report by the government. The government hired a foundation to actually look into because that was the beginning of barbiturates in this country. So we were just starting to see a few pharmaceutical drugs enter the market in the early 1900s. And the government put a lot of money into homeopathy, as it did into some other natural forms of medicine. And they wanted to know, should the money go into natural medicine or should it go into this new science, this chemical-based science that was being developed? So the Carnegie Foundation is actually the one that we now find out there was a person from the AMA who put someone within the Carnegie Foundation, Mr. Flexner, who knew nothing about medicine, and had him write a report. And of course the report said that no, the government should definitely put their money behind pharmaceutical drugs, and that was the wave of the future and that was the way to go. So that was the end of all the research and the funds that went into homeopathy. But that's just in this country. Homeopathy has continued to expand all over the world, and it's the second largest system of medicine in the world. If you go to India, if you go to Brazil, if you go to Cuba, if you go to France, Italy, Germany, doctors dispense homeopathic remedies every day. And they dispense remedies alongside writing a prescription. It's whatever the patient needs at that moment in time. Unfortunately, we don't have the benefit of that in this country. But getting back to what happened with me, I was so blown away by this system of medicine. And I actually went and found a medical doctor in the Boston area who was a trained homeopath. And I couldn't believe how he cleared up the issues that were going on with me, and which, of course, I used myself as a guinea pig first. And I thought this was amazing. And at the same time, it was, fast forward a couple of years, it was actually a school, the Natural Center for Homeopathy, which is the largest magazine in America and organization that supports homeopathy. They actually did a summer school. So I went to a summer school. I thought it was incredible. Now, I was a businesswoman. I had a 6-figure income. I was a mortgage broker. And here I was, every waking hour I could, I was reading homeopathic books. So fast forward a couple of years, and my husband was transferred to California. And I happened to see a friend here in California that used to be my neighbor in Massachusetts. Her husband had also gotten transferred to California. Now, do you think this was fortuitous? I mean, there are no accidents that this happened. And she came to my new home to visit us and had a prospectus in her hand for a homeopathic school in Los Angeles. So I started out at the British Institute of Homeopathy in Los Angeles and did 2 years of that, and then rolled into a new school that had just opened that was called Currento University. And first went through a master's program and then did their Ph.D. program. And the rest is history. Here I am, nearly 30 years later, having had a clinic and having met amazing doctors from all over the world and seeing the way medicine is utilized all over the world. It is so different everywhere than here. And the results speak for themselves, because if you look at where we are in our standings as far as medicine in America versus other countries, we're near the bottom of all the industrialized countries. And that's because the other industrialized countries use natural medicine alongside pharmaceutical drugs.
Mm-hmm.
But unfortunately, in this country, in 1973, Richard Nixon passed a law allowing medicine for profit. So we are now also the only country in the world that allows medicine for profit. So this is why we now, in 2019, have what we have, and we're pretty stuck with it in that respect.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Just because of the way our system is set up. So our system drives the pharmaceutical industry,
Right.
and there is no support from the government or anything like that for natural medicine. But fortunately for myself and others like me who have hung in there and studied as much as they could and went to lectures when other doctors came from other countries to talk about this amazing medicine, I was always there in the front row. So here it is. So that's why now, after all these years, I finally put that all together, and I have written a book and put that information into place. But what I would really like to talk to your listeners about is how important it is to understand that we do have health choices. Mm-hmm. That even though your insurance company isn't going to pay for you to go to a homeopath, or an acupuncturist. Some do, but they're few and far between. And my son, by the way, has grown up to now become an acupuncturist. So he sort of followed in my footsteps as far as natural medicine. Now that he's had natural medicine put under his nose, and I guess probably he was the first person I actually really cured, because when he was 16 years old, and as I mentioned previously, we were going through these cycles of him having bronchitis every spring and every fall. Mm-hmm. And when I was in homeopathic school, the first person I treated was Ryan. Mm. And we analyzed it in class as a project and came up with what the remedy was for this child, and I just sent the remedy, and that's it, and he's never had bronchitis since.
Oh my gosh. Wow, that's fantastic though.
Yes, my husband's allergies were cured. We now could have a cat, and the cat would sleep on his chest, and he was so happy because now he wasn't sneezing his head off with his eyes tearing, and so that was great. Exactly. And it's run through our family at this point, and I don't know what we would have done without it. But to get back to the idea that you do have a choice, you do have a choice, but you have to go out and actually look for it and learn a little bit about it. It's not like you can go down the street to your local doctor and say, I have a cough and can you give me a homeopathic remedy, because he'll look at you like you have two heads. Instead, what you need to do is go to your local health food store and say, I have a cough, do you have a remedy? And I'm talking about treating basic things. You have to start with basic things, because if you walk into any health food store in America, you will see there is a big rack on the wall of little blue tubes. Almost all health food stores carry a brand, a French brand. It's called Boiron, Boiron, and they come in little blue tubes, and you twist the cap, and the pellets drop into the cap, and you pull the cap off, and you toss them in your mouth. And they're little sugar pellets that you let melt under your tongue. And that's because the information, homeopathy is not medicine in the sense of how we think of it as being a physical medicine. It's actually a medicine that as soon as you put it in your mouth, the information crosses the blood-brain barrier. And now that's all your body needs, is that information, to be able to take that information, and it knows what to do with it. So that's why we toss those pellets into our mouth, and we let them melt in our mouth. And within minutes, with many remedies. And if you're not getting results fairly quickly, it's the wrong remedy. I mean, that's how simple it is. And the great thing about homeopathy is because they're made from plant, animal, or mineral substances, they're harmless. So even if you took a wrong remedy, there is no wrong remedy because it can't harm you. It just won't work. It's looking for a match somewhere in your body. And if there's no match, your body doesn't utilize it, and that's the end of it. There are no side effects, and we've never known of anyone ever being harmed by a homeopathic remedy.
Wow. That's so different, isn't it?
It's very different. It's very different. So if you have a child that has a fever, and as the night is going on and that fever is rising, the worst thing you want to do is give that child Tylenol. When you give Tylenol, what you're doing is suppressing that fever. So this is the way the body works. The body raises the temperature in the body to kill off germs, to kill off bacteria, to kill off virus. That's how our immune system works. There's no two ways about it. Any medical doctor will tell you that. However, then they'll give you Tylenol to suppress that fever. And that's because they don't know there's another way. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, there are two amazing homeopathic remedies. One is called Ferrum Phos. The other one is called Belladonna. I experienced this with my grandchildren just recently. They were both starting to get sick. I looked at both of them. One was moping and the other one was jumping around being irritable. I thought, oh, she has a belladonna fever because she's so irritable and her cheeks were red and irritating her brother. And her brother was listless and pale and didn't want anyone around him. And that was a Ferrum Phos fever. So homeopathy is very specific to the symptom. So if I had 5 people in front of me with a cold, they would probably get 5 different remedies. And that's why Western medicine has trouble wrapping their head around it, because they treat everyone the same, and that's all they have time for. Oh, you have a sinus infection here. Here's antibiotics. Where I'm saying, no, you have a sinus infection? Let's see. Is it clogged or is there mucus? Does it have color to it? Each one of those things is a different remedy. So we have over 4,000 remedies, and obviously we can't remember 4,000 remedies. And years ago, you used to have to look them up in what we call a materia medica. Fortunately now with computers, it's all in a computer program, and you can just type in, I have the programs where I just type in someone's symptoms, and I can type in 1, 2, 3, 4 different symptoms, and it'll collate, and it'll come up with all the top few remedies that show up in every one of those symptoms. And then I can look at each one of those remedies, know something about the person, and say, oh yeah, that's the remedy that he needs or that she needs. And it's not like it's terribly difficult. And that's what I tried in this book that I wrote. I tried to lay it out as simply as I could, that creating a manual from A to Z where you could just look up an illness, whether it's cough, flu, fever, indigestion, menopause. I mean, it's all here, and you just look up your symptoms and it tells you the remedy for your symptoms. But we live in a day and age where we really have to start to pay attention to our health, because if you turn over your health to a doctor and not take responsibility for the decisions, he's making now the decisions for you, and shame on you, because if something goes wrong, whose fault is it? It's really yours because you didn't pay attention. There are so many choices, and that doctor has so many patients. He's only allowed to see them for 7 minutes. That's all the insurance companies give him. And he's writing a script. And did he even ever look you in the eye and take your case? No. They do a test, or they hear you for 2 minutes, and then now they think they know what's going on with you. That's not true at all. When you go see a homeopath sits down. A minimum of 1 hour is your first visit to take your case. How could I possibly dispense a remedy for you if I don't have all the information, if I don't know what happened to you when you were 8 years old and you were traumatized, or you had chronic ear infections, or you had this or that? All of those lead to what your health is today, all of that information. And that's how we make our decisions to how to dispense remedies. There are remedies for everything. And all you need to do is get a little book like mine and buy yourself a homeopathic kit. You can go online to Amazon or to anywhere, and you can buy a kit, a homeopathic kit, anywhere from maybe $50 or $60 to $100 or $120. And you have a whole array of remedies that cover all kinds of situations, so that you now have your own home pharmacy. You shouldn't travel without this kit. You shouldn't, you should just be prepared. We shouldn't be expecting others to be responsible for our health. We should be more responsible ourselves, like our grandmothers and our great-grandmothers were.
Yes, that's so true, because my family is from the South, and my grandparents had their own farm, so they had livestock and everything that they grew and they prepared,
Mhm.
and they
Mhm.
sold things, and then, there were certain cures that they may give if someone is coming down with something, or to prevent
Mhm.
them from
Mhm.
coming down from something. And, maybe some of them were
Right.
nasty. My mother remembered, maybe take a spoonful of this, but then she said, but then you're not sick through the winter. I think also is another thing that's important, and, we kind of touched on this before, where particularly talking, about work business, owning a business and entrepreneurship, and people pushing themselves, because our society also
Mhm.
rewards people for working too hard
That's
and
right.
and not
That's
taking care
right.
of your
Yeah.
body.
Yeah. I find one of the biggest issues with the patients I see now is sleep, a lack of sleep.
Yes.
There's all this insomnia and sleeplessness because people are so overworked
Yes.
and their mind just can't shut off at night.
Mm-hmm.
So I have my favorite few remedies that I use for that, my go-to remedies. Yes. And the other thing that's so amazing about homeopathy is how inexpensive it is, which, of course, this is another reason why the AMA doesn't want anything to do with homeopathy, because they can't make any money. First of all, they can't patent the remedies,
Right.
because they're made from natural substances, and that's a law in this country. And second of all, they're too inexpensive. So you can walk into Whole Foods or any health food store in your area, and you can buy a little blue tube of Boron Homeopathics for about $7 or $7.50. That's the average price that they sell for.
Wow.
So that's how inexpensive. So can you imagine you've had acid reflux for weeks, and you can walk into Whole Foods, and for $7.50, you can buy Nux Vomica or Lycopodium or Chelidonium, and you can stop your acid reflux immediately.
Wow.
Your child can have fever. You can have a remedy for $7.50, and you can stop that that fever in an hour. And then you'll see it creeping up again during the night, and you redose the remedy, and you see the temperature come down again. And this is how you use homeopathy. You don't have to be afraid of it. You repeat it. You can't overdose on it. And if it doesn't work, you go on to the next remedy that has the next closest symptoms to whatever it is you're reading or where you're looking up what remedies to use. But this is a matter of us taking back control of ourselves, our lives, our bodies, and our pocketbooks. The number one remedy for bee stings and trauma is APIS, A-P-I-S. And you see that their arms swelling up like crazy. You can start redosing APIS every 30 seconds. You just keep putting a pellet in their mouth, and then another one, and then another one, and then you wait 15 minutes, and you'll see if it's going down a bit, and then you redose again, and you'll see within an hour they don't have nearly the reaction they would ordinarily have, or they won't have any reaction at all, depending on the particular child and the situation. But how easy it is to use homeopathic remedies.
Wow. And since we kind of circled around, what are some of your suggestions for people who need to get some sleep?
Okay. So my first choice, my first go-to for sleep is a remedy called Coffea cruda. And it's just like what it sounds. It's made from coffee. It's made from the coffee bean. And you say, but how can that be? Because coffee keeps you awake. But that's the beauty of homeopathy. They take that remedy, they dilute it, potentize it, and it actually reverses the effect on it. It's the same way with any remedy within homeopathy. It's the concept of like cures like. So if coffee can stimulate you, when you take that coffee bean and you treat it in a different way, it can also put you to sleep.
Wow.
So Coffea cruda is my favorite sleep remedy. Another sleep remedy is Passiflora. Passiflora is a flower. Another one is valerian. Valerian is a flower. And we've seen these in herbal forms also. They come in supplements.
Yeah.
I prefer them as a homeopathic remedy, as a potentized homeopathic remedy. To me, they're more powerful. Herbs are dead. Homeopathy is alive. It's live medicine.
Wow.
So those are my favorite go-to remedies for for sleep. And some of these remedies, I actually buy them directly from Helios, is in England, Helios. And you can go online and you can go to Helios, I think it's helios.co.uk, because it's, of course, it's a British website. And I order remedies from them directly, and they make a wonderful combination. And they combine Coffea cruda with melatonin with another remedy called Staphysagria. And that's a phenomenal remedy for people who can handle melatonin, who are low in melatonin. Now you have the other whole group of people who can't handle melatonin at all because it actually wires them. And for those people, they take a Venus sativa, Passiflora, with valerian, those three. So I can go online to Helios and I can order those combinations right online. And I'll get an order in 5 or 6 days. I mean, you'd think it would take 3 weeks to come here from England, but it doesn't. It comes fairly quickly. So I order a lot of remedies from them, especially because you can buy larger size bottles and they end up to be the same price as the smaller size you're buying in the health food store here.
Wow, that's pretty interesting. I've seen a lot of those names, you know, as far as the supplements, and over the years, read different kinds of books, and heard some of the things mentioned, and so it's very interesting to know that this information is continually being shared and taught. Can you share with everyone where they can find you and also where they can find your books?
Oh, sure. So my website is elenaupton.com, ElenaUpton.com. And there's lots of articles you can read. You can read lots of articles under the title Homeopathy. There's all kinds of articles explaining further about homeopathy. And then there's a blog section where there's different topics. There's children's topics, women's topics. There's topics about depression. So you can read a number of different articles. And my book is on Amazon, and it'll be distributed widely by next week. The print just went up on Amazon. It's called The Alternative, Your Family's Guide to Wellness. And this is volume 1. And volume 1 is first aid and common conditions. So the first half of the book, you can look up from A to Z any first aid issue you can imagine. And in the second half of the book are common conditions. And what I mean by common conditions is volume 2 will be disease. I separated it out. So we're not talking about cancer. We're not talking about lupus. We're not talking about MS in this book. What we're talking about under common conditions, things like candida and tonsillitis and rhinitis and things like that are not life-threatening, and you can learn to treat yourself. And you can get off of this treadmill of antibiotics and steroids and all the other drugs. I mean, there's a whole section on pain, all the remedies that we have for pain, joint pain, and it's pretty extensive what you can actually research in this book.
That's fantastic. So, Elena, if there is anyone listening, you know, as I was saying, a lot of people either in business or looking to start one, or, you know, if anybody's interested in going into this field, are there some steps you'd recommend?
Well, fortunately, now there's so much available online. It's amazing. At the time when I went to school in the early 90s, you know, you had to go to find a classroom, and I was just fortunate enough to come to the Los Angeles area, and I found it right there in my own backyard. But for people in other areas, there aren't a lot of homeopathic schools, but there are phenomenal schools online now. In fact, a patient of mine who actually was a health coach and had some health issues herself, and she came to me for this. And she is now applying to Dr. Vitolkis from Greece, has a phenomenal online course, and she's now applying for his course. There are doctors in Massachusetts that have courses. There are any number of them. You can go to the National Center for Homeopathy, and they're a wonderful resource for education in homeopathy. And you can probably find listed on their website all the different online schools. And a lot of them are certified. And there's a special CCH designation. It's a full day exam that you take. as a homeopath, become certified at a certain level. So even in the latest fires that happened in Northern California, there was a whole group of homeopaths that went up there and volunteered, all the CCH people, because the government has actually grandfathered them in to be able to work within the confines of medicine. And they were part of going up there and setting up tents and helping people who had basic health issues and even trauma. I mean, homeopathy is huge for dealing with trauma and grief and loss, and the list of remedies that we have for that is endless.
Well, that certainly is something I think that often gets overlooked when people are going through a lot of stressful situations is the effect on the person, emotionally, mentally, not just the other aspects. So I think that's fantastic that wasn't forgotten, in the sense of everything that went on and how, horrific I know it looked from where I am, seeing that. So I can't even begin to imagine, what a lot of people have been through with that. So I think that sounds like that was really had to be very, very helpful for people to know that there were people there for them. But we've had wonderful conversations and we've gone on for a nice long time, and I just want to know, before we wrap up, do you have any final thoughts to share about what we've been talking about?
I guess my thought would be that it's important for women, especially, to stay at the top of their game because there's so much that's expected of us. If we choose to have a career and if we choose to dedicate our lives using our brains in a certain way and to have achievements, etc., we still go home and take care of our children and our husbands and our homes and our churches, and it's endless. So a woman really does need to stay at the top of her game, and I can't stress enough how easy it is to do that if you bring homeopathy into your life. If you have some old grief that you feel like there's this dark cloud or something that you've buried, you can find a remedy like Ignatia at your local health food store, Ignatia 30C, and take it twice a day, and that cloud will lift. There's so many other remedies that I could run through, but by introducing this into your life, it will change your life, and you will see that you will be able to stay at the top of your game because you'll be healthier. You won't be on the medical treadmill of one prescription after another, and it'll just keep you in a safe zone in that way.
That's really wonderful advice. Particularly.
And imagine how great it would be if you had a homeopathic kit at home, so that when your children are sick in the middle of the night, you're not going to lose a night's sleep or have to stay home with them the next day with them being home from school because you dispensed a remedy and they woke up fine.
Right. Because that's another thing. And unfortunately, there's a lot of companies that aren't exactly understanding of parents who, have family things they have to take care of. And that's, again, another stressor on the parent, who now has to consider that as well when they're trying to take care of their family. So there's a lot of implications here for all of us. And I think a lot of times women are bearing the brunt of it. So this is definitely a topic for women to pay attention to in terms of taking charge of your health. So this has been such a fascinating conversation, Elena, because you really shared so much more with me than I could have imagined about this. So I'm so happy we got a chance to connect in the way that we did, and that you shared all your expertise and how you got started and how others can also get started as well. I really appreciate you taking the time with us today.
And thank you for having me, Deb, and for giving me the opportunity to actually put this information out there so that your listeners will know that they have another choice. You just have to go look for it. It's a little bit of work, but it's there. And it's inexpensive. So if you can find the time to research it, you won't regret it.
Definitely. So choices, always remember that you have them in your life. So make sure that you just gain the knowledge that you can so that you can make the good choices for yourself. So everyone, it's been another episode of Women Entrepreneurs Radio with your host, Deborah Bailey. I want to thank you so much for joining me today. and we will see you again next time. Bye-bye now. Thanks for joining us. You can also join in the conversation on facebook.com/women entrepreneurs and on the website womenentrepreneursecrets.com. And don't forget to listen in on dvcoach.podomatic.com and on iTunes.